Welcome to Adobe APAC Live. My name is Flynn and I'm here with Mathias. How are you doing?
I'm good, Flynn. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Excited to be here and show some cool stuff today about prototyping.
And we're going to get into that very, very soon. But we want to say hi to everyone out there. So if this is your first time at Adobe APAC Live, you can log into the chat. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the chat room. We want to know where you guys are from. What are you doing today? Are you checking in from work or are you at home? And maybe where you're from as well. That would be super cool. We know that we've been going out to Southeast Asia a little bit more. We had a lot of people from New Zealand here last week, so that'd be cool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on the right-hand side is the chat, and you can log in using your Creative Cloud account. So that's just your Adobe ID you log into everything with. Jump in there. You can ask questions. We're going to be getting stuck into Adobe XD.
We are.
And also talking about wireframes and prototyping, which is really cool. We're probably just going to sit here and geek out about it and about testing and everything.
Geek out with us. It's super fun, and we're going to be making some really cool stuff today to test with some people, hopefully out in the real world.
Yeah, so come and say hi. Hey, Jaceline, nice to see you. Tully, hello. How is it going? No JB yet, but hey, he might be busy. So why don't we do a quick little background about what you're up to? So you work at Fjord. You're a designer at Fjord.
I am, yeah. So I'm a designer at Fjord in Sydney. Mm-hmm. Fjord are a design and innovation consultancy. So my role there is, as a designer, we build digital products and services for a whole bunch of clients. So I've worked on developing apps, websites, or portals like employee portals.
Right.
For a whole bunch of clients in like energy, entertainment like Foxtel, telecommunications companies, and NGOs as well. So non-for-profits organizations, which we're kind of showcasing today with a prototype. We're making an app for an NGO called Good Return, who are based in Cambodia, and they aim to bring people above the poverty line in struggling, in countries like Cambodia and Nepal and the Philippines.
Wow, so that's like a pretty rewarding project to work on.
It has been, yeah. So we worked on that for a good chunk of last year. Myself and another designer, Steve, at Fjord, as well as a whole bunch of Accenture developers, because Fjord are part of Accenture. As a designer there, my focus is really on user experience design, so UX design and service design. So that means that I'm a little bit earlier on in the design process.
Right.
So we're speaking to people, we're identifying needs that they have, things that potentially frustrate them with a certain kind of service or a website, and then I work on how can we improve that? How can we improve the lives of the people that we're designing for, and help them get done what they want to get done?
How might we?
How might we? A lot of how might we's going on around Fjord. Yeah. And then I'm also working on kind of the wireframe and the prototyping. We're testing with people early on in the design process. Before we jump into that interface design, icons, colors, styling, and then all the way through to development. So then we work with developers to actually bring the thing to life, so then it gets out into market and it actually gets used out there in the real world through all the stuff that we've already kind of tested to make sure that it's a useful and usable product.
That's sweet. That's so good. We got quite a few people in chat. Steve H, just in Sydney at work. Good man. Isabel, nice to see you again. Mano, Kuala Lumpur, that's cool. Who else? Dennis, what's up? Robin and Rochelle. It's nice to see you guys.
Hey, guys.
Robin, I think, is a fan of Mathias.
Robin H. Hello, Robin H.
You get to play the game where you try to figure out who it is. My wife was in the chat last week, and I didn't know until later. She came home and she said, "Didn't you see me in the chat?" And I missed it.
It's a mystery.
It is. It is a total mystery. So nice to see you all there. Feel free to ask questions as we go. But yeah, how about we get stuck in? So where would you like to begin?
So let's show what we're going to be creating today.
Cool.
So like I said, the focus of today is really around UX design. So we want to be designing out a really simple prototype for an app idea that we have. And we want to do that really quickly so we can get that onto a phone in this case and get out of the building and actually test with a handful of our target users.
Right.
So that's why we're staying in really simple low fidelity. We call it low fidelity, so not too much detail. As you can see, it's black and white, really basic stuff. There's no UI or polish to this.
Right.
And the reason for that is we can make these really fast in Adobe XD. We can make it tappable or clickable in Adobe XD without getting stuck in the weeds too soon, thinking about font, color, icons, all those type of things, which we do after we've actually tested and ensured that the basic functionality of this app is useful to people and they want it.
Right. And do you think about things like a minimum viable product, like it only it has a single purpose first?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is an example, and I'm just going to give you a bit of context to what this app is actually for, and then we can step through it. So this is for an app for Good Return. They're an NGO, and we worked on this last year, and this is a flow. So this is what we consider a starting point of achieving a task in this app, which is a money tracker app. Right. And this is aimed to help people in Cambodia who live close to the poverty line, so people that really live on $10 or less a day, and they have businesses, and they don't really make much money. So it's really tough for them to get an understanding of how much money they have at any given time, because they really struggle to keep track of all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this app is aimed to help them record their expenses, record their income, record basically all their money habits, so then they can start becoming more aware of their day-to-day money situation. And what we're doing here is we're going to prototype how someone might record an expense in this new app. So that's a core function of this app, and that's actually going to make up our MVP, which is a minimum viable product.
Right.
And minimum viable product is a bit of a weird term, but basically it's what's the smallest thing that we can make in this app core to what it's supposed to be doing, so then we can get it out and get people using it. And so we're not adding like all these, it'd be cool to have like a feature where we take a photo of a receipt.
Right.
That's a feature which...
It's like a nice to have.
That's a nice to have, right?
Yeah.
But recording an expense...
If it can't do that, then...
Can't do that, then... when we're in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
So our MVP is going to be like recording an expense, recording income. In this case, it's viewing the history of all those records, as well as recording for our business owners in Cambodia. They also struggle with like tracking the money that they owe to people or that is owed to them.
Right.
So that became a core part of what we believe this app should be doing.
So there's a lot of bartering and IOU situations happening. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
It's cash only. It's pretty much a cash only economy.
Right.
In this segment of Cambodia, because they don't have access to bank accounts. They don't have credit cards or anything like that. So it's pretty much up to them to keep on top of their money.
And how do you find all this stuff out? You reading about it online or?
Last year, when we kicked off the project, my colleague Steve and we went over to Cambodia and spent time with Good Return over there.
Yeah, wow.
And we did a whole bunch of discovery research, which was basically immersive research, going and spending time with people that we are designing for to understand the context, what they actually need, which is where we found out about some of these insights, and some of the other struggles or pain points that they currently have in their day-to-day lives. So that was talking to people. So getting out and just understanding as much as possible, so we know what we're designing, what we could be designing, but what it should be doing to help these people, whoever they are. In this case, people in Cambodia.
Nice.
So I'm going to step through it now.
Great.
And this is what we're going to create. So we're going to start. I'm going to go into preview mode just so we can tap through it.
David, there's a question in there I said, but they have a smartphone. And I guess that's an interesting question. Did you discover that they do have access to phones?
That's a really good question because we asked that before we went over there and every person actually asked that.
Yeah.
And yes, they do. So we identified that. Cambodia, although still a really poor country with a lot of issues economically and with the infrastructure, smartphone adoption is growing by about 10% every year.
Wow.
So more than half of the population own a smartphone now.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
And that includes, and we validated that that people even living in the poorest parts of the main city, Phnom Penh,
They can still play Angry Birds.
they still have a smartphone. They still have an Android because they buy phones that are a few generations old.
Right.
And they're using it. They want to use it as much as anyone else. They, it's helping them connect on Facebook. Facebook is like the number one app in Cambodia.
Right.
So yes, short answer is we identified people who have smartphones, and it's just going up year on year.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Yeah. It's quite interesting.
Great. So I'm going to just step through what we're going to make today. So it's a single flow of recording and expense. So we're going to first of all make these screens and we're going to connect them. But what's going to happen is we're going to hit on money out, which is this big button here, record an expense. Then we're going to design for this scenario about buying groceries for my family.
Okay.
And I'm going to I've spent 10,000 real. So real is the currency in Cambodia.
Real.
Yep. Real, they use USD just as much as real. So you have this weird double currency economy as well. Just to get an idea of how much 10,000 real is, it's about $2.50 in US.
Right.
It's about $3.50 in Australian dollars as well.
Right. Cool.
So we're going to step through here. They're going to select family or me, and we get all of these subcategories which we're going to create and they can select from, which we've identified some key categories which our users think of when they spend money on, basically. Food and drink. Then we're going to simulate them being able to enter how much they spent. So this is a really basic prototype, but we're going to simulate basic interaction. So what happens when you tap once, and we're going to see an end state of this keypad.
Right.
So they can understand that they need to enter some numbers before moving on. They enter 10,000, and then they're going to hit cash to get to a confirm screen to see how much they've entered. So they've spent 10,000 real, what they've spent that money on. So yeah, they spent it on food and drink. We've got this little add a note input field. We haven't made that interactive at this stage, but as you kind of start validating the main flow, then you can start adding these small interactions in.
Great.
And then done. And then we get a recorded light box or an overlay. You can add more money out, which is add another expense, which will take you back through that flow. But in this case, we're just going to finish because we don't want to record another expense yet. And then now this takes us back to the Daily Money Home screen with our added 10,000 real in money out.
Right.
And now I'm also going to be able to see that record, where that's living in today's records. So we've got that transition kind of going up, just simulating what that transition might do or look like in the app. And then we can see here, this is a list item or record of that record I just made.
Right.
So what we're doing here is essentially prototyping how someone will achieve this really, hopefully really easily. But we won't know until we get out there.
Right. So this is all just for testing purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Validate some of our assumptions of what this design could do to help people.
Cool.
So we're gonna make this basically.
Awesome.
In Adobe XD. So before we move on though, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the really important steps that we take in the design process at Fjord, and I will do in any project that I'm involved with when it comes to designing some type of app or website, is doing a few, like getting these ideas and these flows on paper first.
Right.
And that's super helpful because then it gives you a framework and lets you think really clearly about what is your user trying to achieve and what are the steps that they should be taking or you think they should be taking in your app to achieve that task as quickly and as easily as possible.
So just pen and paper.
Pen and paper. Get some A3 sheets. So I've got...
we've got that over the shot.
We're playing camera tag here. So call this a user flow. Mm-hmm. So we're starting at the start of how a user will get to this app, then step through some of these key interactions or tasks, which we went through on the prototype. And that gives us an idea of like, cool, we know what the basic journey that this person is going to take through the app. Then we jump into sketching basically that flow. So this is, again, super important, and I really recommend doing this just to get ideas, kind of as many ideas out there as possible.
Right.
So you're not kind of fixating on the first idea that you have.
Got to make sure that you don't go straight into the software.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
why that's so helpful is for a few reasons. You can explore multiple ideas really quickly just by sketching them out. Oh, that doesn't really feel right. You can also collaborate more with people in your team. Right. So they can also do sketches. You can collaborate. You can give feedback on what you think is working, what you think isn't working.
Perfect.
And then you can go through a few iterations of this, even before you jump into software. And what's really great about having this is your framework. So you can essentially replicate this flow at a high level into Adobe XD. Yeah. So you're not having to think about every single, where does a component go? What should go in this screen?
See, I really like that because you can, sometimes as a designer, you can get in, you have this blank screen, you think, okay, where do I start? Where do I start? What am I trying to do? And you can get about halfway through and you realize, oh, actually, this isn't really going to work. I'm going to have to go back and start from scratch.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there. So this is a really good practice to get into when you're thinking about a new website or app or whatever it is that you're wanting to design.
And how long would you spend on something like this?
We'll spend a few hours on it. Yeah. So, the user flow stuff be pretty quick through discussions with a team, or if you're on your own, just like mapping out potential steps. Yeah. Half a day. Yeah. Half a day. And
it
then,
depends on the project as well, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And what you also like to, this is just one example of the flow, but just to get a sense of the whole app, you might actually sketch out the 3 or 4 key flows that this app is actually going to do. Yeah. So then you've got your MVP. Yeah. So, and then you can see how that might stitch together in the long, once you actually start crafting the bigger app. And you test each of those flows individually, and then you can kind of bring it all together.
Very nice.
So we're going to use this as essentially our guide, our blueprint for creating this in XD.
Very good. I'm just going to address, what up, Elvis? I saw that you were referring to you. Good question. Elvis. So it's sort of saying that scrolling might be a problem. I think back when we were doing the prototype, looked like I might click on an icon accidentally. You might be right, and that's why we prototype. So, depending on the interaction, how it goes, nothing is the same as actually having an app or a website, kind of in your hand or actually clicking around. Exactly. And then you can really pick up on that stuff.
Exactly. So what we can do when we're going through this is you can connect it to your phone, and you can actually, we'll be able to see a preview of these screens and tap through as well. And then you can start to get a sense of buttons not big enough. Yeah. Buttons too small.
Can't read the text.
That type of stuff.
All that stuff. So yeah, it's a good observation. We'll see how it goes in the end.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And this is where it comes down to exploring ideas, getting people to look at it, review, and then get something out there and see how people interact with it.
And it's all about getting it out there fast, isn't it? So you're not spending a couple of months designing something really beautiful, and you present it, and they're like, well, we don't have iPhones.
No one wants it. we don't have iPhones, or actually this, I'm fine. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, I don't need that.
I've already got a great app, which I'm not going to give up.
Right.
So the aim of the game is keep it simple so we can test quickly, change fast without being too invested, because we poured our heart and soul into this beautiful icon, and then people are like, I don't want to press on that.
Why don't they love blue?
So exactly. So this is our guide. We've got our sketches ready to go, and let's just start. Let's start building this prototype.
Let's do it. I'll just Rajat. So as this is a prototype, so we're thinking about design less, right? So if you mean like, are we thinking about design less? I would say no. I think we're thinking about design, but we're trying to just ensure that we're designing for a purpose. So at the very beginning, so if you look at the App Store and the internet, there's an endless array of designs for things that just didn't need to be designed for, right?
Exactly.
We want to make sure that what we're designing is correct. Do they need an app? Like the solution might not be technology-based. It could be systems-based or something else, right?
Totally.
And so it's up to us as designers, up to someone like Mathias to go through that process and identify, yes, we're on the right track, or do we need to hate to use a cliche word, do we need to pivot on this and sort of take it into another direction? So it's a different form of design, but it's vitally important.
And don't forget, like, this is just one step in the full design process.
Yeah.
So the UI does come. It just comes a little bit after this. So then you can focus solely on how it looks and feels and the branding and not what should this say.
Yeah.
Or what should this do now?
Yeah.
And I'm going to show kind of an end state after this around where this prototype ended up in terms of the final UI.
Cool. All right. So we're going to do this from scratch.
We're going to do it from scratch. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can collate or build this out so you get a sense of where we actually start. So I'm going to go in Adobe XD, I'm going to hit New, so New File. And I'm going to select Android Mobile because we know that no one uses iPhones in our target user group.
It's a good thing to know.
Or Android. It's a very good thing to know.
Good to know.
So I'm going to select that, and we're going to start a new document. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring over a bunch of Wireframe Kit components, which I have, and that actually makes prototyping even quicker. So you're not building every element from scratch every time. So I'm going to copy and paste that over, and I'll show where I actually got these originally. So you can download wireframe kits from the internet. You can also go in XD to File and Get UI Kits. You can hit wireframes, and you get this link which takes you here. You can download this kit, and basically you get all these components which you can start using to build out your screens without building it all from scratch.
Massive time saver.
So I downloaded this for this project, and then I'm going to show you what that looks like in its original form once you download it. It's massive. So you see all these example screens which you can start kind of pulling from. But you've also these elements, and what I do just to make it really clear for me what I should be using so I'm not getting lost too much is I've just copied the elements that I'm going to need. I copy and paste it into my own artboard or
right.
my own file. And then it's really clear, like I'm not getting overwhelmed by 300 symbols or 1,000 elements.
There was a lot there.
A bunch of screens. And then I've just change the color. So you can actually do that on a global level so you can see all these colors in the left pane here. You can edit, and you can just change that to black, and that's going to change. Oh, I'm going to do that again. There we go. So now you can just, if you want to strip the color, you can just do it all in one hit.
It's an interesting thing. There's some designers I know like to do their wireframes in blue and others in black. I'm black as well. I prefer to keep it black and white. I find it.
So yeah, that's a little tip if you want to just start finding some elements that you can drag and drop into your design to save some time. So let's start by making this prototype. So I'm going to label this. So I'm going to go off these sketches. It's going to be my guide. I'm basically going to replicate this and then make it clickable. So the first one is Daily Money Home. So that's a home screen. And then I'm basically going to copy and paste a whole bunch of these over. So I'm going to have the top bar, copy and paste. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to put that at the top. And then I'm going to take the bottom nav, copy that, and I'll put that down the bottom. See, it's just going to snap to the edges.
Just snaps in, nice and easy.
And then I've got these primary and secondary buttons because that's what I want to do for my sketches. I want to use some primary and secondary buttons for call to action. So what's more important and what's not as important. So I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to put that kind of down the bottom. And I'm going to copy and paste that. So these are actually all symbols as well. So I've copied and pasted these from these boards here, but I can just drag and drop these existing symbols over. So if I want, I can just do that.
Same button.
Same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And then I also want to make the most of layout grid. So we've got our 4 columns. So that helps me ensure that we're having at least some alignment and consistency in the designs.
Yeah. I love a good grid.
Love a good grid. Don't ignore the grids, people.
We have a question from David H. Can you option drag?
Option drag.
So when you were doing the symbols, when you're grabbing that symbol, that's what you were doing.
Yeah. So you mean in terms of copying it?
I think so, yeah. Is that what you were doing? I imagine that's what you were doing.
Oh, I'm going to hit option again. There we go. Yep. So I was just copying and pasting, but yeah, you can just option drag as well.
There you go. Good question.
Just to copy that. So I'm going to use this layout grid, which you can turn on and off on the right panel, which is grid in layout. And I've got 4 columns here. And you can just go onto Google and search column grid or column layout for mobile app.
That's the good thing about the internet. Like there are standards for all this stuff. So if you're not sure, just go with the standard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is basically just going to make us ensure that we're in line across all our designs. And you can turn that off and on as much as it suits. And then we've got, let's title some of these. So I'm going to call this Daily Money. And I'm going to call this See My Balance. And this one is View Today's Records. And while we're here, let's put in the bottom nav items. So this one is Daily Money because that's a selected tab. And in our sketches, this is history. And we've got credit, which is IOUs, essentially.
Cool. Sort of question in the audience. So if you're just joining, we're here with Mathias and we're using Adobe XD. And what we're going to show you is we're going to show you some rapid fire prototyping. So wireframes and prototyping to kind of test. So hey Divyas, good to see you again.
What's up?
Yeah, thanks to everyone shouting out in the chat. He's using Adobe XD. That's right, he is. Very good.
XD. All right, cool. Let's finish this screen. So off the sketches, we've got the day and the date up the top. 31 November. So I'm using November because it's like the longest. It's the longest month. So then we're not like running out of space if we use May.
That's an interesting point actually. Because I think. When we were sort of teaching a bit of design, we used to do that as well. So we'd always use really, really long names when we're trying to design things. Because if you use a really short name, you can sometimes break.
And you're stuck.
And you're completely stuck. Always go with the longest that you can. Because it can always be smaller.
Exactly. We can go down. It's hard to go up sometimes.
It's a good tip.
And now I'm just going to give this a little bit more size and boldness, and I'm going to center a line. So I'm using all these, this panel on the right here to adjust all of the sizing and the alignment and stuff like that. And what I'm going to do, I've got 24 bold. I want to. That's a font size I'm probably going to use a few times. So I'm going to add that as a character style in the left. So that's going to pop up there. And then I can just select that whenever I want that size font to appear in the design.
That's a big time saver.
And then we've got money in and money out amounts next. So I'm going to type money in, and then I'm going to copy. I'm going to option drag.
Option drag. David, check it out.
23,000. That's a lot of money, but. We're going to make it real.
23,000 seems like heaps of money, doesn't it? How much is that? Like $5?
Yeah, it's about $5.
About $5, yep. Okay.
About $5, so not really that much. And I already had this real symbol, which I found, again, online.
Paolo, was asking, how do you choose your font?
At this stage, I just use a basic global font.
Yeah.
Arial.
This is Arial, I think, isn't it? Arial Helvetica.
What you can do as well, if you want to make it feel more sketchy, is find like a handwritten font.
Right.
Because then if you're going even lower fidelity, so it looks like a sketch, then it can actually be really really fascinating when you test with people. If something looks really nice, people might be hesitant to actually criticize it.
Right.
So if you want to make it basic, so Arial, Helvetica, black and white, that's why we kind of keep it at this really basic level. But if you make it even like handwritten font, then it's really clear that it's a work in progress.
Right. So you can just be like, I just threw this together.
Exactly.
It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Do you like it? What do you hate about it?
I hate this. Or
do you do that trick where you tell people, well, we didn't make it.
We didn't design this.
Someone else designed it.
Exactly.
What do you think? It's not very good, is it? Like, does it help at all?
Well, yeah, that's another thing. You can say, look, we're just doing the research.
Yeah.
You know, and so whatever you say won't hurt our feelings.
We used to do that with the client.
We're strong.
Behind.
We have iron hearts.
Yeah. We used to do that with the client behind the glass at the testing thing, and give someone a product to test and say, we didn't design it, we're just testing. So be honest. And they're like, okay, well, to be honest, this doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get the truth.
Exactly. So I'll finish writing these bits in, and I've changed that to 20 and regular. I don't want that to be quite as strong as the number.
Nice. I actually, Paolo, sorry, I'm not doing a very good job with your name. If you're actually specifically asking how do you choose your font, maybe it's a good time to mention that the menus for Adobe XD are kind of situational. So depending on or they're contextual, I think is the technical term. So depending on what you've clicked into, so if you click into text, for example, all the text options will show up on the side. If you do a shape, something different, symbols, something different again. So if you're playing around with Adobe XD and you can't see it, click whatever you want to affect, and you'll notice that the menu changes on the right-hand side. And yes, the blue lines were guides. So they're up for now, but they won't be shown in the final design.
Exactly. You just turn them off. It's just to help you while you're designing. So we see, because we're putting this button aligned here, but I want to I want to move that in a little bit.
That's an interesting question. Sorry, I'm interrupting you a lot, but there's lots of pretty cool questions. Can you label the character style? I don't actually know if you can. Like if you wanted to say this is my H1.
It?
Yeah, you can
totally.
rename it.
So we can call that headline.
Headline. Cool.
Done. And I'm pretty sure you can rename that if you want. So that's just black. There we go.
So in terms of material design is like specifically kind of Google. It's Google's thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess that's like their kind of mantra towards how they design and build their apps, which is very well thought out. This is, not dissimilar. This is like building a system, but that's specifically Google's system. In fact, I think with those add-ins, I think if you wanted to play around with material design, up in the top corner when you've got these wireframes, I think material design is an option as well.
Yeah. So you can go Google Material.
Boom. And then you can just download it and play around. So there we go.
So that's something that, from a visual design perspective, we also considered with this, because we didn't, we wanted to kind of leverage some of that as well from a development point of view.
Yeah.
So again, that's stuff that you can actually download the material design kit, and you can also just use that as essentially your kit to drag and drop as well.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think Elvis XD's like solution to that is to have plugins. So if you haven't played around with plugins, I use them all the time. So you can go up and you can save UI kits through some of the plugins. It's pretty useful. So you can just kind of stay within the app, which is pretty great. I also just kind of keep a certain amount of icons in, and I usually just open them up in XD and do something very similar to what Mathias did just then, and just drag them across when I need them. But yeah, it would be cool if it had like a standard UI kit within.
It would. Anything more would be helpful.
Yeah,
but
more
we've
stuff.
already got a lot. We've already got. Well, maybe that's a lie. Maybe not too much. As long as we can work with it. So I've just built out these buttons, and I've found some icons from the kit that I copied over, just to represent what this button might actually look like. And so this is money out, and I've just copied this over because this is going to be our money out. Oh, we don't want caps.
Money out.
And then this is going to be 15. So they've spent 15,000 already. So we kind of designed this with the assumption, or almost at a state that they've already made a few, recorded a few things.
Right.
To kind of give them a little bit, or at least test their concept of what's going on this screen. You know, does money in and money out make sense to people, and what does this 15,000 and 23,000 mean to a user when they open it? So this is our first screen, and I'm just going to do a couple of these screens as examples because we've got a few different elements which I want to show you can create really fast.
So you just very quickly, just for people that aren't used to XD, you just very quickly copied that whole artboard, which copied every single asset over at the same time.
So I can delete that, and I'm going to select that, and I just hold down Option, and I just drag and copy that.
You know, the shortcut for that? Command D.
Command D? Nope.
Someone showed me it 2 weeks ago. It's changed my life.
All right, see, I'm learning stuff on this show as well.
That's it.
Awesome.
We're all just helping each other out, right?
So I can remove this layout for that. So I'm happy with that. I mean, it looks pretty close to my drawing, and it has all the elements that I want on there for them to be able to use this prototype. So I can move on, and I can do 1. And that's money out. So they're going to select money out, and then we're going to design the screen for what that money out looks like. I want to delete this top bar because I already have in my elements one that has a back icon. So,
right.
Or I'm just going to drag and drop that from my symbols. So here I've got top bar back.
Cool.
And I'm going to, you know what, I'm just going to delete all this. So I'm going to name this money out. So then once the user taps on this, they know that they've tapped on it and they know they're in the right spot.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, Elvis, that does work for me. Do you mean dragging the entire artboard and then putting it below? It does work for me. If it's not working for you for some reason, you can always grab the artboard and then drag it below. But yeah, it should be able to just option drag it down. I'll have a little play at the end and see if I can figure that one out.
Okay, now this is going to be a pretty quick screen I think we're going to make because we're going to basically create 6 category buttons which they can select from. And again, you can draw that out and then save it as a symbol, but I've already done that. Again, once you do, let's make this a symbol. Since I just created this, I'm going to make this a symbol just to show what that looks like. Hit plus, and then now I can call that money in, for example. So then now whenever I want to use it again, I've got it.
Nice.
All right, so now I'm going to create the categories. I need 6. So I'm going to use this repeat grid button or feature up on the right, in the right panel up the top corner. And you tap that, and now you've got these 2 little green bars that you can drag out, and you can duplicate that as many times as you want. So it basically saves you from like copying and pasting 6 times.
This is the repeat grid feature, which saves me a lot of time. And I love that you can edit the gutter as well.
The gutter, yeah, it's super helpful. I use, typically with any kind of layout or spacing, I use the 8 pixel grid. So anything's in increments of 8 pixels.
Right.
Or in increments of 8s, let's say that. So I'm going to do 24. That's 24. And then I'm going to, I don't want that. And then I'm going to just drag that down 6 times. And is that 24? No, it's 20.
So as
24.
you're dragging that, you're actually reading it might be a bit small on the screen, but just so everyone at home knows what's happening. Oh, yeah, we zoom in a bit.
It's still really small.
Yeah, it stays small, I think. Might be relative. So it just kind of, it indicates on the pixels to the side, just very small, but it will show you exactly how many pixels that gutter width is, which is very useful.
It's super handy. It's really quick to step something out like that. So we've got our buttons. It's also really good for like any designs that have like lists. Then you can just kind of repeat grid that out until how many you need. So why did you use money? I'm gonna add a bit of a background so then these buttons stand out a little bit more. And I'm just gonna save that as a swatch so I can use that again. And then this is a symbol. By double clicking on any of these, you can override that label without affecting the symbol itself. So you can see I hit work, but category items still exist for everything else.
Right.
So they're treated individually even though they're a symbol.
So that's a double click.
Yes.
Double click to get in there.
So I can ungroup this grid. So now they're individual items. And then I just double click in there. Family or me. Okay. So keeping in mind like the language and the terminology is, we've kind of discovered what we should be using based on the research.
Right.
So that's why we're using money in and money out.
Yeah.
Because that's a really basic language and basic terminology which resonates much more to our Cambodian target user group than expenses and income.
Yeah, if you're doing something for one of the big 4 banks in Australia, you wouldn't use money in, money out, would you?
Maybe.
Well,
who knows?
Maybe you would. I guess you have to do that research. I guess I'm making an assumption, but presumably you wouldn't necessarily do that.
Yeah, so keeping in mind our target user.
Yeah.
You know, as long as we understand them, then the design will be shaped around what they need.
Yeah.
And that comes down to language as well. That comes down to massive part is language, right? So these are the 6 categories that they can choose from. The last one is Tong Tin. I'm not going to spend too much time on what that is. However, it's a super common thing in Cambodia among our very poor segment.
Okay.
Because they don't have banks or savings they don't have banks to help them with savings. There's no long-term deposits or any kind of programs to help them. Tong Tin is like communal short-term deposits.
Right.
So someone will everyone in the community will give one money holder a certain amount of money each week, and they'll hold on to it, and then the first person that needs a lump sum will get money back at the reduced amount of the total of what they've put in. So basically you're earning interest.
Right.
So that's what Tong Tin is.
That's what Tong Tin is. There you go.
Okay. And we've already found so just because these are placeholder icons, these aren't going to be the final icons we use. It's just enough to give an indication of what we think, a starting point basically. It's because we know that imagery is really important to our user group because people are literacy is an issue with many people.
Right.
And it takes them a bit, we've noticed it takes people a lot longer to read just because of, inability to get kind of a lot of schooling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So images and icons are really helpful. We all love images and icons. It makes all of our lives easier, I think, when using that. So we've got second screen. And what they're going to do is they're going to hit family or me because we have our scenario, which I'm going to show you. What I also do as a bit of a habit is I just type this in that in the file that I'm working on just to keep it really clear what this flow is going to be doing. So I've got a customer need. I'm going to copy and paste it in this one. But customer need is tracking money. Got a job story, which is basically a context to that need. So when I pay for something, I want to have a record of it so I can track the money I spend. And we've got a scenario. So that's basically what we're going to be designing the flow for.
This is so useful so you don't get kind of bogged down in which button do I make click.
Yes.
Because we're going to get to prototyping.
Exactly.
What am I trying to achieve and what am I asking? What's the scenario that I'm asking someone to go through?
Exactly.
When I'm in my user testing phase. Very cool.
So we've got family or me. And then this is going to be what on? So what did you spend that money on now? And now I'm going to pull over this category button again. And I'm going to use, I'm going to again do the repeat grid. I'm going to make it 24. And we've got a bunch of categories in this one, which we've identified through our user research. And then let's make sure this is 24 spacing as well, so it's nice and even.
Very cool.
And let's center align that. Cool. So now we can Now we can change all this. So let's just change like the first 6 in the interest of time, so you get an idea of what those are. So the first one is food and drink, and that's what we're going to prototype the next screen for.
Nice.
Bills and fees. So we all need to pay for that fun one.
Don't like that button.
And medicine. Health and medicine. So not many people we're designing for have access or have any health insurance.
Right.
So that's actually a big kind of cost for them. It's cost for all of us, but they don't have any insurance there.
Wow.
Education and house. Let's go household items, and then house renovations. Sweet. So I'm not going to do all the rest, but I think we're getting the idea. And then again, I found these off Noun Project, which is a really handy website to find a bunch of icons. However, make sure we're not going to release these. So licensing is obviously something to keep in mind. Not to be using icons or illustrations or anything like that without the right license, or anything like that, or at least if it's going public. So I've already found these, and then I'm going to ungroup this, and then I'm basically going to delete these ones just to get a sense. Bring these in around the center. Again, it's like we are going to make it pixel perfect eventually, but let's like get this all kind of happening relatively quickly. So I've just center aligned all of those. Cool. So we have that. Now, what happens at this stage, according to our sketches, is they enter an amount. So you know what? I'm just going to create a new screen from the right panel, which is Android mobile.
So you might have noticed then that when Mathias clicked, the contextual menu changed over to the right, and so XD knows what you're trying to do, or it tries to guess at what you're trying to do, and then you've got all the typical sizes right over to the side. Yeah,
you're going to get most of the devices, the sizing there.
We need a social media one of them. I noticed there's no Instagram stories tile, which is what I need. I should be able to talk to someone about that, right? I'll work at Adobe.
Come on.
I'll run it up the line.
You're like the man.
I'll run it up the line, yeah.
All right, so let's quickly create this one. So we're going to do another back top bar. So I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to label this. Let's, just for consistency's sake, let's call that family categories. And 3 is enter amount. Sweet. So let's copy that over again. Let's make that grey background fill. Now now this is how much was it? How much was it? And so now we've got this little feature here because we know people are constantly chopping and changing between real and USD.
Right.
So we should let them record that expense in whatever currency they spent it in, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
because otherwise we're forcing them to kind of do the math in their head.
Like, 10,000. Okay, I need to do.
It's about this. And
exactly. So at this stage, let's just use some really basic radio buttons. So I found these again from my UI kit. There are also symbols in the left panel, but I'm just going to copy those and I'll put those here. And to help with like vertical alignment, so spacing, you can also use by selecting the artboard, down where there's the grid in the right panel and it says layout, you can tick that, but you can also choose square. Now you can see like you can align that to the horizontal lines as well. And these squares, I've set at a size of 8, because I said that's basically the grid that I use in increments. So that's what we want to use. So I can just align that to one of these. I can also align that down. I'm going to swap these over. There we go. And I'm going to change this. So the acronym for Cambodian Real is, that's not right. It's KHR. And then we've got USD, that's the other currency. So let's group those and center them. So now they can tap which currency they want to record in. And then we're going to use an input field. So I can just create one here. I'm going to change my layout style to see columns again, so I know how wide to make it. And then I'm going to make it 60 high, and I'm going to copy and paste that. That'll bring it in front. And I'm going to find that real symbol again, because it's obviously not on my keyboard. And I want that to be big, because I want it to be really clear the number that they're punching in. So I'm going to make that, let's go 52. There we go. So that's 0. So that's what they see when they first get to it. And then we're going to add the other currency, which is USD. And that we know that 10,000 real is about $2.50 in US. It's about, not 40. There we go. And then I'm going to create a body copy style. So I'm going to, my 16 point is going to be my body copy size. You don't really want to go less than 16 or maybe 12 on an app.
Right. As in point...
for legibility.
Like the size of your font?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's just like a fairly standard, I guess?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you want it to be legible on any kind of device.
We're running a bit low on time, so I just wonder if...
Let's fast track this. I'm going to copy the rest of these screens in. And then we're going to stitch it together.
This is here's one you prepared earlier.
Exactly. But I think we all get an idea of how to kind of build out these screens. So I'm going to copy and paste that in. So now we have our flow, and now it's actually achieving what our job story is, and it's aligning to our scenario. So now we're going to make that tappable on a phone. So I'm going to go into prototype mode, which is up the top, so you can swap between design and prototype. And now I can select those items I want to be tappable. So you highlight them blue, and you just drag from that arrow to the screen you want it to transition to. And then we can choose from our transition options how we want that to behave. So transition, we want to keep it like that. Destination money out, we've just dragged it to that, so that's right. Animation, I don't want it to dissolve. I want it to act like in an app that I'm moving into a new flow.
Okay.
I'm actually doing something now. And I'm going to make it kind of feel like linear. So I'm going to do push left. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to preview it. When I tap that, it goes left.
Right.
Sweet.
Cool.
Now I can just literally go through each element and link them to the next screen. So push left, it's remembered my settings. So that's sweet. I can just leave that as is. I can select food and drink, drag that over, push left. Yep, sweet. I've created 2 states of this, an empty state and a entered state. Let's just say, just to simulate what would happen, they need to obviously punch in some numbers. Once they hit that number pad, then let's just show that 10,000 state. So I'm going to change that to none. So it's going to feel like it hasn't moved anywhere.
Right, okay. So you don't want anything to slide to be into instruction.
So now I'm here and I'm going to go 1 or hit 1 there, and there it looks like it's been entered.
Cool.
Now they're going to select cache. And we're going to go back to push left because they're moving forward in their flow.
So it's like a consistency in the interaction.
Yeah.
Like, even though we're really early on, it's like a little bit of consistency.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to have things coming in from the top, the bottom, the side,
Just coming crazy.
in one flow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, where am I? There's certain mental models that we have by moving forward and moving back.
Right.
And you'll notice in all your apps, probably a lot of them do that.
Yeah. Cool.
So hitting done, we're going to have that kind of appear over this confirm screen. So we're going to change that to overlay.
Perfect.
So that sees where that's going to sit over the top. So, and then I want it to dissolve. So I want it to kind of like just appear like with some dissolve effect. So I'm happy with that. Let's see what that looks like. So I select that screen, I hit play, and then when I hit done, there, so it fades over it.
So is that grey background? Does that have a transparency?
It does, yeah. So that's something worth showing here. I'll go back into design mode.
So otherwise it'd be a solid colour, right?
Exactly. So I've created this box, grey box, and I've put it behind my light box here. And I've given that, see, an 80% opacity. So then you're going to see through a little bit of that screen above it or below it.
Good little trick.
And then we'll go back into prototype mode and we'll hit finish. And let's go dissolve again. So that's going to fade back to our home screen. And we've kind of updated this by 10,000 real. So that'll fade into that. And then if I want to see that record, which is going to be living in here, then I'm going to select that. And I want that because there's not really a task. I want that to have a slightly different transition. So I want this to slide up. So I'm going to go slide up there. And I'm going to slow that down because it's got more screen size to move. You don't want to feel too fast.
Right. So it's got a longer distance to travel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you probably want to make the duration of that transition a touch longer. So I've gone 0.5 of a second here. And then so you can close that again. You can select that on its own if you want. So like that. And then you go slide down. And that keeps that duration at 5 seconds. So that's perfect.
Nice.
Let's see if that's working how we want it to. So we go back to money home. Daily money home, I should say. And then money out. Okay, cool. We're going to select family or me. We bought some groceries, so food and drink. How much was it? I'm going to select, try to start punching in 10,000. It shows that. I'm going to hit cash. Yep, that's cool. Everything there, I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit done. Tells me it's recorded. Sweet. How much? And I'm finished. Fades out again. And then now I want to see that record. I'm going to hit view today's record and that slides up.
Nice.
That's it. That's our basic flow. So essentially you don't need to prototype anything else from all these other screens before you go out and test that. So to start seeing, do people get this? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Basically. And then you get that feedback and then you can start making changes to it.
Yeah. Very cool. And does it work on the phone as well?
It does. So let's open. So you can download the Adobe XD. I'll move that up. You can download the Adobe XD app from the App Store or from the Play Store. And in here, then you go to Live Preview, which is the second tab. And then now you get a preview of what that looks like on your phone. And then you can make any adjustments because really this is what you want to be testing it on. So I can tap that and I can slide that down. I can select food or drink. That brings it over. I can start to hit 10,000. That appears. Yep, that simulates that interaction. Hit cache. Happy with that. Hit done. Finish. There we go. I'm back and I've recorded that. And now I can see that that's been recorded. I can close that. Again, basic transitions, really basic design.
Yeah.
But it's enough to get out and speak to 5 or 6 people that you're designing your app or your website for. Put it in front of them, ask them some questions, and then give them a scenario that will allow them to hopefully use your app in the way that you envision it.
Very cool.
That's pretty much it.
That's awesome.
And I can show, and we're pretty much out of time, but
if you got something else to show, that's okay. We can go a little bit over.
I'm going to show you because I'm sure there's a lot of people going, yeah, but like, I want like color. I want like cool things. When we get to that, we've validated that. So we go out and test it. And then once we validate that people actually find it useful and usable and like, yeah, cool, I can kind of see myself using this. Then we add that layer of fidelity and that UI. So we work with this awesome designer, Dave, who was also at Fjord up until like a few days ago. He's moved on. But awesome UI designer and visual design. We work together on creating the visual language and the branding of this, along with Steve Farkas, who is also at Fjord. And this just gives you an idea of where this ended up. Once we added that layer of branding and custom icons, so we got custom iconography designed for this, and really went through iterations and versions of the styling and stuff. So you can test the visual design just like you test the functional design.
Yeah.
But that's like a whole other episode.
That's a whole other episode. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. It's good to see kind of where it ended up. And this is still very early on in the process. I mean, I think you're getting close to releasing a beta.
Yep.
And you'll be giving it to people, seeing how they download it, how they can find it, the naming of it. Does it work in the real world?
Yeah. So what we did from this point is we did all the UI, the final UI design in XD, and then working with the developers, they can work off this using development tools like Zeppelin. They can see all the colors and all the sizing and everything like that. We build that actually out in real code, and then while we're doing that, we're continuing to iterate and test these designs. Never ends, basically. You keep testing.
Yeah, or iterating, as they say.
Exactly. So now we have an app, and it's any day now. It's getting launched out to a pilot group in Cambodia with a whole bunch of, we call them beta users. So it's a beta of the app, which is like, we probably still need to work on it, but let's get it out into the world. Let's get people using it in their day-to-day, see if there's other things we should be doing to kind of make this a better experience.
Yeah.
So that's going to be happening for a couple of months, and we're going to hopefully find out a whole bunch of interesting things and get some feedback through interviews, analytics. So you look at parts of the app that people are using, how often they're using it, and that'll inform how can we improve this app even more? So that's happening at the moment. So it's super exciting for Good Return and for us.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because it's finally become this real thing.
Yeah.
But it all starts with ideas, prototypes.
Nice. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, taking us through that.
No problem.
That was really good.
Happy to.
Should we see if we can answer some of these questions? I kind of let some of them slide.
Sorry, I was in the...
No, that was good. It's like this perfect end.
In the zone.
But let's see if we can tackle some of these. So understood page-to-page level transition, but can we put auto timing while object-to-object auto animation transition? I'd have to have a play around with that. And usually doing auto animation is one of the fairly new ones. It actually just is possible in the browser. Actually, so last time we did Adobe XD, you couldn't use auto animation in the browser, but now you can. So that's a brand new feature came out, I think, yesterday, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure about the auto timing. Sorry about that. And David was asking, and could you have flow branching for other buttons too? Yeah, of course you can. And so I guess in Mathias' situation, you were testing for a very specific thing.
Yep.
And then you might do several of those, several different ones, different scenarios, different situations. How do I put money in, or how do I get money out? All that sort of
Exactly.
stuff.
The more you build out the flows, the more they start to interlink.
Yeah.
So you're right. We prototyped a money outflow, and then we also do the same for money in.
Right.
So you create another hotspot, or you just select that, and you create a prototype branch to that screen.
Right.
From the same home screen.
From just the same file and everything, which is cool.
So you're right. You basically can have essentially as many links from the one screen as you want, if that goes into different parts of your website or app.
Very cool. Yeah, Susan, I think we might have covered object-to-object auto animation very briefly in a previous episode with Jason Grant. If you look that up, I think we go through that for about 5 minutes. But we'll see if we'll get a link after the show ends, and we'll drop it in the chat as well. Because auto animation is really powerful. So that's like way further down the end of like really high fidelity animation stuff, and that's changing every day. But I'll find a link and I'll make sure that I drop it in there so you can come back and check. Rajat was saying, oh, you're answering the question for me. Thank you very much. What new style icon for 2019? I don't know. So thanks everybody for joining us for Adobe APAC Live. It's been great. Thanks for the questions. I'll dump that link in there if anyone wants to find out a little bit more about Auto Animate. And thank you, Mathias, for coming on.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
It's been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And thanks everyone. And we'll see you this time next week. So next Wednesday we'll be back. Thanks very much.